Have you ever heard of the worst chef in MasterChef history? The man titled King of Kitchen Disasters? Talk about arrogant, delusional, atrocious, and any other degrading adjective you could think of. And you'd have Tali Clavijo, a contestant of Season 3 of MasterChef, who was also very infamous for conspiring with another contestant to bring down their competition. In this video, we'll tell you about the devious story of the King of Kitchen Disasters, the worst chef in MasterChef history, Tali Clavijo on MasterChef Season 3. When someone says before brilliance comes madness, you should expect a deeper meaning with that phrase, and Tali never failed to show this in the times he appeared in the series. In the first episode, the contestants were asked to cook a risotto. While the timer was running, other contestants were hurrying to finish up, yet Tali seemed unfazed, and the judges criticized his bizarre methods of cooking up a risotto and the weird ingredients he mixed up which certainly didn't belong in a risotto. Finally, it was time to serve. He went up and presented his dish to the judges. Joe was one judge Tali feared, and would often say that he was the scariest judge and the one to win over. And if he could do that, then the MasterChef title would definitely be his. So, do you think Joe was impressed with Tali's risotto? Joe grabbed a fork and dived into the risotto. Lo and behold, Joe described it as garbage and even disgusting. Chef Ramsay, as you would expect, was way worse. When he tasted Tali's risotto, he spat it out of his mouth immediately. That's to tell just how terrible the food was. But you would think that after these reviews, it'll be Tali's last appearance on MasterChef, right? Well, he made the bottom 3 with Dave and Helen. Helen was saved, so the ultimate decision came between choosing Dave and Tali. However, despite all of the bad reviews Tali got, the judges decided to eliminate Dave instead for some weird reason, and everyone in the room was taken aback. But Chef Ramsay made it clear to him that he wasn't safe either. At this point, you would expect Tali to focus on making better dishes and try to extend his stay in the competition, right? Wrong. Instead, he teamed with a fellow contestant, Ryan, and he also took part in the scheme of trying to get Monty out of the show for no apparent reason. Later on in episode 6, Ryan won the Mystery Box Challenge, and the theme of the challenge was fresh versus convenient foods. Ryan had to choose between tuna, crab, and ham, all available with fresh and canned variants. He had the power to choose the main ingredient, and guess what he went with? Crab. Additionally, he had the power to determine which contestants got fresh or canned crab. And guess what he chose for Tali? Yeah, you guessed it right. He chose the fresh crab. And this was part of Ryan's strategy to try and keep Tali in the game. But did that work out? Let's find out. So, each contestant had 60 minutes to prepare a dish with their fresh or canned crabs. However, Christine, who is MasterChef's only blind contestant, was struggling with preparing the fresh crab, which Ryan intentionally picked for her. It was obvious he wanted her out of the competition. You can even see his face smirking and grinning when he saw she had issues with the crab and got injured along the way. I mean, there's something to be said about giving a blind person a live crab out of malicious intent. Such a messed up guy. When it was time to taste the food, Tali presented his dish to the judges, and as we expected, they described it as a horror movie played in slow motion. But Tali remained adamant that his food was good, and even said his food was so good that the judges couldn't see the potential. In fact, his words were, "I think that judges struggle with understanding my flavors. Maybe they're just too old school. They can't see the beauty and the genius that is in my food." What? Talk about being delusional. And Christine? Her dish was amazing. It wasn't just delicious, but looked great as well. Of course, this didn't sit well with Ryan. Also, Monty, the girl who Tali and Ryan tried to sabotage, came out with an amazing dish that got all the judges excited, especially Chef Ramsay. Once again, Tali found himself in the bottom 3, and for someone who has been at the bottom the whole time, he seemed overly confident. But as fate would have it, Tali dodged a speeding bullet and escaped while Helen got sent home to the surprise of everyone again. In episode 7, Ryan and Tali teamed up against Monty. Later on, the duo had to face a pressure test, and instead of admitting defeat, they began to badmouth Monty, saying mean words to her like how she had 30 different screws loose in her brain, or how they would want her to go home. Honestly, I have no idea why they hated her that much. As you can tell by now, Ryan has an inflated ego and is just as delusional as Tali, the birds of the same feathers that flock together. Presenting their dish for the pressure test, Ryan went first with his molten lava cake. You can tell the judges weren't impressed at all, and his partner in crime, Tali, was no different. He had liquid in the middle of his cake. After the judges were done deliberating, Ryan and Tali were placed in the bottom two, with the possibility of one or even both of them being eliminated. So, fate was in the judges' hands. Here's how it all played out. The judges asked one of them to willingly give up and leave the competition. Yes, you heard that right, which is something that has never happened before on MasterChef. Now, you wouldn't believe who gave up their spot for the other. Ryan. He stepped up, and this ultimately kept Tali back in the game. Isn't it so surprising that Ryan would give up his dreams for someone like Tali? It's even funny that he called himself and Tali the dream team, when in reality they were practically the worst duo in MasterChef history. Moving on, for the next dish, Tali was to make some cheese pizza, which had some name I can't even spell out. But guess what? The pizza still had raw flour in it. Like, seriously? How bad of a chef and baker do you have to be to still have raw flour on a pizza? Now, I'm starting to believe Ryan intentionally gave up his spot for Tali so that he can sit back on the couch watching TV, laughing at Tali's clownery at its finest. Last but not least, they were given an Arctic char dish to prepare, and the judges went crazy on Tali. They had nothing positive to say, and he ended up in the bottom three again. Tali was finally shown the door due to his consistently poor performances. From conspiring to eliminate a contestant to having an arrogant attitude which he proudly displayed throughout his time in the competition, his greatest weakness was in the kitchen. But despite being a good team player, he was consistently bad at individual challenges. He was the only contestant in the top 10 of his season to never have an individual challenge won. His biggest problem was himself. Always acted delusional, never cared about his performances, and had a hard time seeing his flaws. He was also disliked by Dave, Monty, David, Frank, Josh, Becky, and Christine for his alliance with Ryan and his subpar cooking abilities. Yet he always bragged about his hidden abilities that clearly didn't exist. But hold on to your hats, there's more. And this next part will have you screaming or laughing out loud. So, after Tali finally got eliminated from the show, he made yet another appearance later that season for a special second chance episode, where selected contestants previously eliminated were, as you've guessed, given another chance to rewrite their wrongs and get back into the competition. I honestly wonder why Tali was brought back on the show after performing really poorly back-to-back. That guy was clearly out of his depth. Well, maybe they just needed some cold drama for that episode. I mean, he could have served a PB&J sandwich and no one would have been shocked. During this episode, Tali managed to prove to everyone right again that the only thing he was extremely good at was messing things up. I must say, it baffled me to see how he always found new ways to do something completely different from what was assigned, and how he'd screw it all up in the end. At this point, one would ask, what did this guy ever do to get the white apron in the first place?